you've done, since you left Access Bank, since you left the exchange as the president of the exchange, you've done a number of things: Coronation, the Africa Initiative for Governance. Can you just touch upon those and how you're using those to make sustainable change on the continent?
If you want to make money in Africa, all right, if you think simply about, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow, okay, and you have at the bottom basic needs, and then you have safety and security, and then the next you have the need to interact and be happy and entertain yourself, and then after that, more aspirational things around recognition, etc. So, if you look at the African opportunity is all about, today really, is all about meeting basic needs, because basic needs are largely unmet, okay, and providing solutions to those basic needs at scale, all right? So think about Aliko and cement, which is a housing thing. You need to house yourself, all right? And you produce enough cement for 1.2 billion people, you're going to become very wealthy if you can do it at scale. Okay, fine. Now, my notion as far as financial services is concerned in Africa is that we've played a lot on the short end, okay, of financial solutions. So money transfer, credit cards, things like that, okay? Just the notion of a bank account. But the need around safety and security and wealth creation is completely unmet in Africa today, apart from South Africa. Completely unmet, okay? And so, yes, we are beginning to grow pensions, we are beginning to grow an asset management field and so on. But honestly speaking, we're on the ground floor, okay? And if you think of the notion of retail banking in Africa being on the middle floor, but we're on the ground floor. And so, kind of when I left Access Bank, I said, I'm going to keep my investments in short money because, those investments are, first of all, quite significant, but more importantly, they pay me great dividends. But focus my mind on the long money game, all right? And so Coronation Capital essentially was, or is, a PE platform, all right, that has grown into a much larger, diversified investment management platform, which we want to, just as we did with Access Bank, all right, establish very firmly in Nigeria and then go regional. But then you asked about philanthropy. The one thing that I've found, across 54 African countries, now this is, we're mainly Africans here, so I don't need to argue this thing about, Africa is not a country. We know that, all right? But I don't think we truly appreciate what it means to roll out a business across several African nations. So whether the country is small or the country is big, the country will have a president. The country will have a maybe central bank governor and other regulators and so on, who must be given their sovereign respect, okay? And so you really need a lot of energy and you need a lot of relational skills when you say you want to roll out. So when you receive a phone call that this president wants to see you now, you need to get on a plane and make sure, you see him. And when you need an approval or there's a policy context that can make or mar your dream, you need to interact with government. What I found was that it was too often the exception that the public servant in Africa was an enabler of things happening. I found that in Africa, too often, I found that policy makers and policy implementers were disablers of dreams. And I said, why? Why should that be the case? Why should I almost have to die to make my business work? Why should I, as a as a barber in Obalende, which is not too far from here, have to, in addition to learning how to cut hair, why do I have to learn how to be a power generator to run a barbing shop? Okay? So I kind of did a study, and I found that over several years, from about the mid-70s, Africa suffered a massive underinvestment in capacity in the public sector, whilst there was a shift of massive investment into the private sector. Okay, so I am a product. This local guy who merits sitting, here. I'm a product of investments in the private sector. Okay, now imagine that instead of going to the private sector, I went to the public sector, as our parents did, most of them. Okay, I would be, forget the amount of talent you might assume I have. I would just be that. You know what I'm talking about. So my notion is this: that we cannot afford to live in Africa with this underinvestment in capacity in the public sector, because we will all suffer for it. And so Africa Initiative for Governance is all about building capacity in the public sector. So the first thing we started was scholarships to Oxford University's Blavatnik School of Government to study an MPP on the condition that you must come back and work for your home country. Fellowships for public servants who have excelled. Go do your 1-year fellowship, re-energize yourself, think through a problem you're going to solve again, and come back and do it. So Professor Jiga, who was the Electoral Commission chairman, Georgina Woods, past CJ in Ghana, these have been fellows. And then what I'm working on now is a university, a world-class finishing school, as good as GFK, as good as Blavatnik, as good as Lee Kuan Yew School, in Africa, all right, for Africans, for public servants only, all right? And then we go on and on. I'm also working with the civil service right now around reform, hopefully to make the civil service in Nigeria, work better. So that's what I'm doing.
In the private sector, having chaired the board of an exchange, what challenges and advice would you give the exchanges that are here in also breaching the gap, that financing gap that would allow us to actually provide value for 44,000 companies and get them listed on our exchanges?
The first thing is this: clearly, an exchange in Africa will have to walk the same path as exchanges across the world to make themselves fit for purpose. So if you are mutual, you've got to demutualize. Okay? If you have the constraints of a mutual structure around you, you are going to really be hamstrung, to provide that value that you're asking for. Management has to be independent. Management has to be entrepreneurial. Management has to be completely incentivized to do great things. And that can only happen in a demutualized context. The next thing, of course, is that for African exchanges, I think life is a bit easier as they come of age, because what technology can do today, all right, and was not there when exchanges in the advanced markets, were being built, is just tremendous. Okay, and I like to see. I think that with the very many options around, from blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, and things like that, to even just simply digital systems for distributing financial products. Okay, your ability to leapfrog and serve retail markets, okay, is tremendous. And honestly speaking, I will hold ASEA accountable if in 10 years' time ASEA cannot boast, all right, of having reached 100 million Africans as users of exchange products and services. If you haven't done that, then you haven't realized your full potential. There is something happening in the world right now around technology that has given you the power to democratize capital markets.